In this video, I'm going to go over some beginner tech to complete the Lesbian speedrun. So we're going to go through Glimmer, Summer Forest, Rush Skip into Crush, then Climb Skip, Gulp Skip, Gulp, skipping into the castle in Winter Tundra, getting into Dragon Shores early, and finally getting into the park itself. These are not necessarily optimal strats. In fact, in many cases they are not. But they're the sorts of things that are a little easier for beginners to pick up. And so that's the goal here. Alright, let's get started. In categories like this, time starts when Spyro is able to move, so these cutscenes won't count towards the final time in an actual run. Alright, so Glimmer is pretty short, but it does require a trick, the double jump. So we're going to go up into this little tunnel here. And note, when I'm gliding, what I'm doing is I'm charging, I'm holding X, and then I'm gliding out of that. So I'm doing a charge jump by holding square and X at the same time, and then hitting X to glide out of that. In Spyro 2, that's better than doing the Spyro 1 type glide of hitting X twice. It's faster, you go a little bit further. You can also do a double jump, where you hold X and then square afterwards. You can also glide out of that. But since that's harder and it has more possibility to fail, we're only going to do that generally where we actually need to. So right here is the first place that we're going to need that. We want to get up roughly where Spyro is facing, out of bounds on the wall up there. And this is too much to do with just a charge jump and a glide. We can get close, but not quite enough. So what we're going to do is a double jump and a hover. You don't need to go for this exact spot, but but that's one of the easiest to hit. Now, when you're trying to do this fast, you're probably going to be walking as you start your double jump. And there is a technique called the walking double jump. But if you pay attention to my input display, what I'm doing is I am letting go forward before the double jump really gets started. If you're holding forward when attempting a double jump, it's not going to work. So for example, it's just going to be a normal charge out of the jump. So you do have to be careful, you do have to time it. This takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's a really important technique. So now we're going to charge along this wall. We're going to want to jump and glide up to that out of bounds area in front of us. You can do it from a little earlier, even before it spawned in. So even though we can't see it, we know it's there. You may need to hover, you may not. If you want to feel a little bit safer about it, you can go further along and see where you're going. We don't need a double jump for this. We'll charge along here, and our goal is the talisman room down there. We can't see it, there is a wall, so we want to be careful. What I like to do is I will do a charge jump into
Spyro,
a
thanks for
charge,
helping
and
us find
eventually
out
I'll
the
glide. We'll grab the talisman that's going to talk to us about the folder that appears, and we're going to head in.
this map.
We'll get a cutscene about Summer Forest. And once this loads in, we're off. So our goal is to get to Crush right away. So I'm going to do a couple charge jump glides. No double jumps needed here. We're going to come to these stairs where Hunter is, and now I'm going to start doing double jumps. Double jumps tend to be best for climbing stairs in Spyro 2. We want to head over here without talking to Hunter. And then we're going to follow this path along for a little bit, up these stairs. And our goal is to glide through this pillar here, roughly where the square is. And I'm going to do that with a walking double jump. And we have skipped the need for swim. I'm going to take these buttons. Now, Zoe really wants to talk to us. We go anywhere in her range. Ideally, we would avoid talking to Zoe by jumping over her and flame that button. But since there's another button ahead for safety, I'm just going to jump past her. I'm going to grab this life for safety because we can lose lives pretty quickly up ahead. We're going to grab this button if we didn't grab one before Zoe and walk here so we're in where the door will land. I'm going to face this button and flame. We can see the button triggered, and now we're inside the door. I'm going to try and get my camera to play along. It's going to be a little tough. It's a little easier if you're further out from the door. But be very careful because you can pop back in and out. So if you do this, you have to do the process again. So the camera's going to play a little bit more nicely now that I'm further out. And our goal is to jump into that sort of blue sky area in front of us. This will take a double jump. And we're going to go into the crush portal. You don't need that as good a double jump as that was to get through it, but it does help. Next, we're going to fight Crush, and realistically, any approach that beats Crush will work. But in terms of speed strats, we really want Crush to stay on blue panels as much as possible. They're faster. When Crush gets hit and he's on a panel, he's going to move to another one in a fixed pattern. So here he's going to move to this one. And I know that this panel is going to stay blue in the final phase. By flame hanging slightly off it, it'll go right back to it. So you can see I'm damage boosting here. I'm letting Crush hit me. And what I'm doing is I'm turning almost 90 degrees, jumping, and then I'm flaming. That prevents him from getting too far away, so we'll go back to that same panel. Now that we're in this phase, I'm going to get close, I'm going to jump and move a little bit forward, and when he starts to chase us, I'm going to double jump away from him, and he'll miss. It's important that it gets slightly off that panel each time, so that it goes back to the one that we want. For this last hit, it doesn't matter. We'll get hit by a pyramid of rocks, and we're past Crush. If it doesn't go the way you want, that's okay. You'll lose a little bit of time, but as long as you don't die, it's not going to be too bad. But now we're into some of the more difficult parts of the run. Once we get past this cutscene, we are in Autumn Plains, and our goal is going to be to do Climb Skip, Gulp Skip, and then beat Gulp. Let's start with this. A more advanced technique would allow you to do a trick called Round to Portal to get up on top of this portal. It's really worth learning. It saves a lot of time, but I'd say it's not the most beginner-friendly of tricks. Instead, you can go to Zephyr over here and double jump up onto the wall like this. And I'm doing a walking double jump. Generally, you get more distance when you do that, even if they are a bit harder. And you don't necessarily need to come to a complete stop. There are a variety of angles that work for this. it's not too precise, but as you're still learning double jumps, you may have some trouble getting up. Be careful not to get too close to moneybags who will talk to you and you'll lose a little bit of time. We don't have 400 gems, we can't get into Zephyr. Now I'm going to charge all the way along this wall, and this is a big reason why this is so much slower than Ground to Portal, where you get up on the Breeze Harbor portal that we see in front of us. We're going to run all the way along the wall. And so now my goal is to have Spyro sort of facing, so he's not going to exactly hit the wall as he walks forward, but he is going to be fairly parallel to it. And then I'm going to walk forward and do a walking double jump. I'm going to turn sharp left, and I'm going to let go of the buttons. And letting go of the buttons during a double jump causes you to flop. So you can see Spyro gets a little extra burst of height and then starts to freefall. That extra height is going to let us get onto this part of the bridge if we get the angle right. If not, and we fall, we do have to go all the way back to Zephyr. That's a lot of time loss. So we want to be doing our best to try and get this in one go. So just like that. So that's only the first step of climb skip, but I'd say this is probably one of the two hardest pieces. Now, we may not always be so lucky. Maybe our angle isn't quite as good. Maybe we're a little sloppy with our double jump. So, for example, you may be able to save it like I did by sort of hitting X when you realize you're not going to get high enough and land on the portal. If you do, you can jump back up with a double jump, which is actually what you would do if you did ground to portal. This takes a lot of practice, and you can definitely do it faster than we're doing, but then I'm going to go about halfway up this bridge, and my goal is to get onto this sort of green roof here, but not the side closest to us. We want to jump over it and land on the other side. You see, the side closest to us is going to make Spyro fall off. But the opposite side, for the most part, Spyro can stand on. Now I'm again going to do this with a walking double jump. With a good enough regular double jump, you don't need it, but the walking double jump gives us some extra safety. And you're going to have to hover, and as you can see, I hovered a little bit too early, and I landed on the wrong side. Hovering gets rid of most of your horizontal momentum, so you really want to be careful with how you time it. Since I fell, I'm going to have to do the process again, so you want to be very careful. I'd say these first two jumps are by far the hardest in this climb skip trick. Alright, so let's do that again. Again, I'm about halfway, maybe 2/3 the way up the bridge. I get a walking double jump. I'm going to hover a little bit later. I'm going to land on this side. Now, if you go too far along this way, you will fall off. You will die. So I'm going to stop around here. You can go a little further than this. Next goal is this sort of arch, this bridge here. Another walking double jump. Again, I'm going to go 2/3 of the way along this. And this time I want to land on the roof of this pillar here. This one's a lot safer. It's definitely possible to fall, but since you're going along the bridge the entire way, it's not too bad. I'm going to once again do a walking double jump and hover, and you can see I can land here. My next stop is the roof over here. I'll just do a charge, jump, glide, and hover. Now, if you charge off of this all of the way, let me set a save state just to show this. You flop and you'll fall. And we don't want that. Flopping is bad. So I'm going to double jump instead, just to avoid it, and land on this roof here. And I'm going to aim for this seam. If you look really closely, you can see there are a couple of polygons that come together at this spot. I'm going to stand as close to it as I can, face roughly this way. I'm going to do a double jump into a flop while holding forward. The goal is to not hit charge for very long, and Spyro's momentum will hopefully take him over. If not, it's not the end of the world, as you can see. But now we're up on the roof, and we've completed Climb Skip. Next up is Gulp Skip, which is tough. We're going to get zapped by Zoe here in case we fail. Because if you fail Gulp Skip, then what that means is you have to take a death and try again from up here. So instead of redoing Climb Skip every time, we get zapped by Zoe, so we start here instead. An important caveat is that if you run out of lives, if you game over, you'll have to go back and do Climb Skip again, which is part of the reason I picked up that extra life outside of Sunny Beach. So with Gulp Skip, our goal is to get out of bounds by clipping into a wall with some fairly precise movement. I would say this is definitely the hardest part of the run by far. And I am once again going to set a save state here just for speed. So the game doesn't want us to go this way. It's meant to be one way the other direction. This whirlwind's going to take us up. So I'm going to charge and I'm going to aim for this far right corner, and we avoid the whirlwind. There are a couple spots where that works, but the far right corner is the safest. If you're not careful, you'll just get lifted up by the whirlwind. Or if you bonk like that. Alright. So now we're going to be very careful here. We can't see it, but there is a breakable wall in front of us that we're going to try and basically get into. If we go too far and we pop out, and since I have a save state, I'll show that, we can't get back in. We'd have to take a death or do Climb Skip again. Also really important, if you break this wall, then that's it, the run's over, because the wall doesn't come back if you take a death. So if you do that by accident on purpose, that's it. Even taking a death won't fix it, as I'll show. And then I'll load my save state. So you want to move very carefully here. Yeah, so we can see it's now gone. Now, I'm normally an analog stick player. For Gulp Skip, I will use the D-pad, and I think almost everyone does. So our goal is to get Spyro stuck along this seam that's to our right. And so what we're going to do is we're going to inch Spyro forward so that this sort of center horn, I've heard some people call it a mohawk, is aligned roughly with the wall. We can use triangle to see. We want Spyro to be at a reasonable angle, not completely perpendicular to the wall necessarily, but so when I hold triangle, that center horn is aligned with the edge of the wall. Spyro's at a slight angle, and now I'm going to hold L2, rotate the camera this way. If I rotate the camera the wrong way by accident, the camera may pop back in. It may not. Triangle and L2 are your friends in that case. But while I'm holding L2, I'm going to start rhythmically kind of slowly and gently tapping left. We don't want to tap while Spyro's feet are still moving. So I'm doing this a little slower than I could, but the idea is that Spyro is slowly but surely inching into the wall, and we want him to be really, really close to this seam that's in front of him. Depending on your setup, depending on your experience, it may take a while. I would expect to be doing this for a while. Now we can see Spyro's shadow has dropped. That's bad. We don't like that. So I'm going to hit down once, and then while holding L2, I'm going to tap X twice, so jump and glide. Then I'm going to go back to my tapping left. When Spyro's shadow falls, that means he's not in a good position, and if we keep going, he's going to pop out of bounds. He's going to pop back into bounds on the other side. Now, sometimes this doesn't work. Like here, I have popped back into bounds, and since I've done that, the only solution is to take a death. The trick's a bit finicky, even at the top level. I'm no expert. But we don't want Spyro to pop out. We want Spyro to pop into the wall. So I'm going to do that again, a little faster this time. I'm going to try and get back to that same point we were at before. And we're just going to tap left. You can tell you're getting close based on Spyro's body. So right now, Spyro looks kind of normal. As we keep going, Spyro's legs are going to start bunching together a little bit. Just a little bit of time. Yeah, so now we can see Spyro's kind of close. We have to be very careful now. I'm going to slow down a little bit, be as gentle as I can with these left taps. Spyro's shadows drop, so I'm going to hit down, X twice again, and go back to left. And hopefully we're going to have this work pretty quickly. I'll do this a couple of times, either way. So this is good. Spyro has dropped. And Spyro's in the wall, which is good. He's not actually in bounds. That's what we really want to happen. And as you can see, because the camera got stuck, I used triangle to manipulate it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to try and get the camera so that the right edge is around this sort of white circle thing. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump, then hold forward, and only after jumping will I hold forward. And then I'm going to do a technique called a charge glide. Since I'm in the air, what that means is I'm going to tap square and roll my finger to X very quickly. So ideally, the fewer frames that we're holding square before we do X, the better. You don't need a perfect charge glide. It's not a frame perfect trick by any means. But if you go too slowly, then you won't get the result you want. You'll bonk into the wall. What we're going to try and do is sort of sneak through the panel that's in front of Spyro and out of bounds. So I'm going to save state here. And so that was a sloppy charge glide. I held square for too long and I bonked back in bounds. I would need to take a death at this point and do the process again. But thanks to my save state. So that time, I most likely didn't register my square press because it wasn't sort of solid enough. And so, once again, we're back in bounds. That one, though, worked. And you can see we popped under the level and into the gulp portal. So let's do that again. Jump, forward, square and X. And that didn't quite work well enough. And you can see on the input display that the square hit isn't really happening in some of these that aren't working. And that's some of the danger. because you're trying to hit square so quickly that it may not register at all. Because I'm kind of gliding my fingers across square and X as quickly as I can. Now this time, I'm still in the wall. This is still salvageable. We can do the same thing, jump, hold forward, then square and X, because we didn't pop back and bounce. Again, my charge glide was too sloppy. But you can salvage these. Some of them, at any rate. And you can see from my input, I'm sort of hitting square and X lightly. I'm not really holding on to them, at least in the good attempts. In the bad ones, I may be hitting square too much or not at all. And gulp skip is just a hard trick. It's frustrating. It's unlike anything else in the game. And especially if you don't run Spyro 1 a lot, this charge glide idea is very difficult. At the top level, you want to be very good at this. And in a shorter category like this one, it's something that you may reset over once you get decent. But in practice, if your goal is to just complete a run, you can do this as much as you need to get it. Just being able to hit gulp skip is going to feel like an achievement for a long time. Now, you want to be very careful, and part of the reason that I'm not, say, holding X out of this is I don't want to pop back in bounds, which is possible. So, for example, let's see if I can get a good one. You can pop back in bounds if you are too eager to glide out once you're out of bounds. And this is bad. You'll have to take a death if you do this, or even worse, you could end up in the summer forest. So I'm going to wait to drop a little bit before I do this. And we're going to eventually charge into this and fight Gulp.
Gulp, we've finally...
So Gulp skip is probably the hardest part, but it's not like the Gulp fight is trivial. Gulp has 10 hit points. He has a pretty common pattern, so you know what's coming for the first 3 cycles. Our goal is to get as many double hits on him as possible to shorten the fight significantly. With a double hit, it kind of depends on what weapons are out on the floor. You cannot get a double hit with 2 bombs. You can't end a double hit with the bomb. The bomb can't be your second hit. A double hit is easiest with 2 rockets, but it's definitely doable with 2 barrels or a bomb and a rocket or a bomb and a barrel. This fight is going to start with 2 barrels, or it's going to start with barrels, and we're going to try for a double hit. If we get it, go straight to the rocket phase. If not, we get bombs. So I'm going to go charge underneath him. He's going to jump over me, and I'm just going to stand behind him and basically make him turn to try and face Nate so that he doesn't move. And I'll wait to see where the barrels land so we can make a decision what to do. There's 1 barrel coming. There's the other. We might be able to get a double on this. They're fairly close together. They're not in a direct line. So if I do this, I'm going to start from the one further back. And then once I get that, I'm going to try and go to the other one and shoot it at Gulp as well. So that didn't work partly because Gulp came at me and changed his position. If I had stayed behind Gulp a little bit longer, I might have been able to get that double. Since I didn't get it, we're going to go to the bomb phase. Now, if we're in front of Gulp, Gulp is going to shoot rockets at you. Since we can't get doubles in this phase, we're just going to go for a simple quick hit. Gulp's not going to move in this phase, we can just kind of shoot at him directly. Rockets are next. Rockets are very straightforward to get a double with. You're going to pick up one rocket, walk over to the second, shoot at Gulp, and then pick up the second rocket. So I did get that. Here's the second one. Shoot. Pick up the second rocket, and shoot at Gulp again. So now we've done 4 damage. There's 6 health left. And for the rest of this fight, we're going to get just sort of random drops. We're going to try and mix and match to get doubles where we can. Ideally, we get 3 doubles and the fight's over. In practice, that's probably not what's going to happen. We get a bunch of bombs, we have no choice. But we're going to try and keep Gulp in roughly the center of the arena. We're going to see what weapons we get and make a decision. At this point, when Gulp shoots his rockets, we're going to get 4 instead of 2. And at 2 health and below, we're going to get 6 instead of 4. His sort of rockets can destroy weapons. His charge can destroy weapons. And at this point, he can pick them up and use them himself. And if we ever get to green sparks or worse and we get a chicken from an egg, Gulp can eat it and restore health as well. We're going to want to be careful. So Gulp's a little closer to the center of the arena. We're going to walk around, see what spawns. We've got a barrel, another barrel, and a bomb. They're kind of far apart. We can sort of move some of these. We can charge the bombs, we can flame the barrels to move them a little bit. But we're going to wait another round. We can see that a rocket spawned. Now, my movement wasn't great, so Gulp did get a barrel. But what we're going to do is we're going to charge the Spyro, shoot a rocket, and we got a double, but it was a slow one. Still probably faster than 2 singles, but not by a lot. And that's going to be the process for the next 4 hits. We're going to try and get doubles when we can. We're going to see what spawns. I see a rocket in a barrel. 2 rockets or a rocket in a barrel are my favorites for getting these. They're generally easiest, but again, you can do it with other combinations. So he has 2 health left, 1 more double will do it, or we can get 2 singles if necessary. Let's see what we get here. I see a bomb, I see a barrel pretty far off, and another barrel. We might be able to work with that bomb and barrel, but the bombs are kind of hard to work with, especially with bulbers. I see a lot of barrels now. I'm going to go for it, but I don't think that this is going to work. Yeah, so that second barrel blew up in the explosion of the first, so it didn't count. The line on that was pretty decent. Since Gulp is 1 health, we're not going to worry about doubles. We're just basically going to take anything we can. You generally want to wait for Gulp to start moving before shooting those bombs. Unfortunately, he didn't charge at us. He charged for a weapon, so we missed. Generally, I try to avoid the bombs where possible. The Gulp fight just takes some practice, especially for going for doubles. There's nothing wrong with going for singles, though. Alright, so now we're in Winter Tundra. We're close to the end of the run, but there's still a few tough tricks to come. Because we have skipped all of the talismans, all of the orbs, and most of the gems, we don't have Head Bash. But we need to get into the castle. Further, we need to get into Dragon Shores, which normally means beating Ripta. Beating Ripto in our current state, just regular flame, is slow, and in addition, we'd have to find a way to get into Ripto. Normally, you need 40 orbs for that. And most of the backups require swim, which we don't have. Our goal is to go out of bounds and get into Dragon Shores that way. I'm going to charge past Allura. I'm going to head left here. There are ways you can do this with the penguin, but we're going to use the train. I'm going to get kind of close to this, and I'm going to double jump up. There is this triangular polygon here that you can land on, but if you miss, you can fall down to the bottom here, and you can fall off. So you really need to be careful aiming for that polygon. That takes some getting used to. My next goal is this sort of right mountain peak, roughly where Spyro is facing. I'm going to do this with a walking double jump into a hover. Again, there's a triangle polygon you can stand on. Different people have different preferences on this next step. I'm going to aim towards the top of this triangle, but not all the way. Our goal is to get on top of this peak that Spyro is facing. There's another triangle polygon you can stand on, but this one we can't see it from here. You just kind of have to trust that it's there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to align Spyro with the top of that peak, which I can do with, again, that center spine. And then I'm going to do a double jump into a flop. So again, I'm going to let go of X and square while holding forward. And holding forward lets you guide Spyro onto that polygon that we want to stand on. So we can see from this angle that there's a triangle polygon that we successfully landed on. If you miss, you can fall to your death or land back down and have to do this process again. I'm going to go down and do this process again just to show you. So, depending on where you land on this triangle, next step can be easier or harder. Ideally, you have Spyro sort of safely with all legs on the ground, as opposed to at the top where only a couple Spyro's legs are on. And that's because we need to turn around. And if we're not careful, we can slip off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to face this way. This is how we would have landed. And I'm going to tap very slowly the down button, again on my D-pad. And Spyro's going to slowly turn around. There are other ways to do this. There are faster ways to do this, but that tends to be pretty safe. So now we can see Spyro is facing towards the castle. And our goal is to do a walking double jump up onto this wall. We need a pretty good one. You can bonk onto the wall and that's bad. But now we're up on the wall and we're in. Now, there's still more steps to come, and a death will take you back to Allura at the start. If this is something that you struggle with, it's a reasonable technique to go into Robotica Farms here and then leave. And that will set your spawn point if you die inside the castle instead of back by Allura. Our goal is now to climb these stairs. You can use the whirlwind. It's maybe a little slower, but the stairs are a good way to practice your double jumps and your flops. So I'm climbing the stairs with a double jump, and then I'm letting go of both buttons to flop, and I'm angling Spyro in towards the stairs, and sometimes I'm going to grab a third stair from that flop. Not on any of those, unfortunately, but that's the idea. There we go. So I got a couple there. So our next goal is to get out of bounds, and that's hard. What we really want to do is end up between these two white mountain peaks, roughly where the center of Spyro is right now. there's a small polygon that you can stand on up there. And this requires a pretty good double jump, especially a walking one. So I'm going to get a good walking start. I'm going to come to a stop at the edge, and then I'm going to do my best double jump where I hold X. I'm going to hold square after a small amount of time, and then I'm going to glide out of that to get as much distance and height as I can. The timing is really important, both for the double jump. If you don't time it great, you won't get enough height, and for that hover. If you hover too early, if you aim too far left, you will fall off and have to do this part again. So like, if I hover now, it's not going to work. I'm going to slip off. And especially when you're new, double jumps are really tough on the hands. They're not movement you're used to doing. They can hurt. The fewer attempts you need at this, the better. But really, we're aiming for the sort of far triangle polygon here. So you can land here, you can land here even, but you can't land here. And again, you can take the whirlwind up, but this is good practice for your double jumps and your flops. You can see I'm getting decent height on that jump, and I'm not hovering too early. I'm trying to get over this region that you can land on. So now we need to do a bit of a blind glide. Our goal is actually to sneak underneath the level right by that portal, which is where Dragon Shores is. And this is not easy. I'm going to need to do a double jump around the mountain, and I'm going to have to rotate the camera and manage to get under the level. I'm going to come in from underneath these castle walls that we can see in the distance. I'm going to put a save state, and then we're going to go ahead and do this double jump through this little peak, rotate the camera with L2, through this little gap, keep rotating the camera, and aim for those stairs in the background. So it's tough, and you need to know what you're doing. This takes some practice. Double jump, rotate the camera as you glide, try and rotate it very quickly through this little gap, keep rotating the camera and aim for the stairs. It won't always work, and if you miss, for instance, if you're too low because you hit part of the mountain. So let's do this. I actually popped in bounds, but so let's say I go at too wide. I'm not rotating the camera quickly enough. I might be too low, so that barely made it. But if you miss, like this should be too low. Yeah, so I was too low there because I didn't turn the camera fast enough. I went too far. I lost too much height. You will end up taking a death, and as we can see, we're back with Allure. Thankfully, I made that save state. So I'm kind of low. So I'm going to turn the camera more aggressively here. Again, this takes practice. Save states are useful for this, but they're no real substitute for just trying it in runs. Now, I should give a couple warnings here. We do not have swim at this point. We're going out of bounds. Things could go very wrong very quickly. So if I go too far, I don't have swim. I'm stuck in here. My run's over. If I'm using a memory card, I can exit and respawn back at Allura. But if not, the run's just over. Likewise, let's say I do this and go too low. So I'm underwater, but it didn't register me as being underwater because you're not supposed to enter this way. So once again, my run is over unless I'm using a memory card. It's not too common to do that once you know what you're doing. But as a beginner, if you take this too close, you may run into problems there. So that time I was a little too low. I'm going to try and hug this wall without touching it. Sometimes the camera gets stuck, but as you can see, I'm sort of holding or tapping L2 to rotate it, face those stairs, get as much height as I can. And that's the entry into Dragon Shores. There's one final step. This is definitely not easy. Since we don't have the collectibles that we need to get in here, we do have to get over this wall and into the park. So the idea is we're going to do a double jump, ideally a walking double jump. It has to be a really good one. And we're going to try and sneak over this wall and into the water. Typically what we're going to do is we're going to start here in this little nook. We're going to end up walking somewhere around here. There's a visual cue along the wall. This is where we're going to start our double jump. So I'm going to walk along here and double jump around it. Most people find this easier with the D-pad. You can do tricks like rotate the camera with L2 to get a good angle. I just kind of wing it. And this will probably take some tries to get it. I'm going to walk along here, do the double jump, and glide. And if I do it right, I'm going to just clip over the edge of that wall. As you can see there, what happened was I didn't do a good walking double jump. And it will look like you're just sort of charging out of the air, like we saw at the start of the level. So as you can see, I flipped over and I got a successful glide. Once you're in this water, if you have sparks, it is vital not to hit charge. If you do, the game crashes. I'm going to pop back in bounds when we do this again. And I'm going to do a save state, just for safety. There are some other things to watch out for in addition to just how precise this trick can be. So I nearly got it completely quite a bit. But where you pop out of bounds here, if I can get it again, you can actually take a death if you just fall. There's actually no water right beneath you. So once you get over, you also have to sort of mash X to go into a glide and land in the water. The first time I ever got this, I was so surprised that I got over the wall that I didn't do that and took it down. You can generally get a sense for like how close you are based on how close to the top of the wall you are. If you're regularly short, you may want to look at like how much you're hugging the wall. You don't want the wall to rob your momentum or the quality of your double jump. The better your double jump, the easier this is going to be. But as a beginner, that's really tough. So while I don't have a hint cam, you can look at the amount of time between when I'm hitting X and square. And you can see the difference between some of the better attempts and some of the worse attempts. Alright, so I'm over. Now, fortunately, I don't actually have swim, so when I hit square, nothing's going to happen. If you did have swim, this would be a problem. But that's one fewer thing to work with. Our goal is to go along this water here and get into the park. Since this is fairly easy, I'm going to do it with double jumps just for speed, double jumps into glides, but you can just sort of swim, you can hop. We're going to go to the edge of this water, you can see where it stops. And for this category, we're going to face into the park. For other categories, we're aiming for that super flight power. I'm going to do a double jump close to the edge, but not exactly at the edge. And the reason for that is the very edge of the water can eat some of our inputs, especially our jump inputs. And the last thing we want is to just drop an input here right at the very end. So I'm going to double jump into the park and charge. Now, one of the issues potentially is if you're using save states, this is sort of fixed RNG, but that's not too big a deal. Now, once you're in the park, except for some tricks, you're kind of stuck. Like, it is possible to get out of the park with some very precise movement, but if you want to practice this, definitely use a save state. Like this. You could double jump, you could just do normal jumps. And once again, I'm going to just try and get into the park with a double jump. I need to avoid the target. You want to be careful not to land in here. You can get out if you do, but it's just kind of a pain. The glass is a one-way collision, fortunately, so you're not permanently trapped. Let's do this one last time. And then I'll do a full run. In fact, this time I'm going to aim for here. And you can see you can kind of get through it. Alright. So let me pull up a timer. As you may notice, I'm doing this all in one shot, so we don't necessarily expect a great run. This probably won't PB, just the way that goes. But that's okay. Alright, so as many of those steps as I could, I took them kind of slow. I did them a few times, if at all possible. This time we're going to go through fairly quickly, just as we can see what it looks like at maybe not full speed, but close to it. So once again, time starts when Spyro is first able to move. So we've got a couple cutscenes first before we'll start. And honestly, if you can do this, you're about 85% of the way to doing an any percent run, which is impressive. That's a really, Spyro to any percent is a tough run. It's going to start just in a moment. And we're off. So we'll double jump up here, charge jump glide, onto the roof here. Talk to this NPC. So I'm on emulator. I generally like to be talking to him around 16, 17 seconds. I'm happy if I see that number. Try not to bonk into the portal. We'll go through. And there's our first split. We'll skip a cutscene here. And then we're going to go through Summer Forest. And again, our goal is to do Crush Skip. I'm going to grab an extra life to help with Gulp Skip later. No need for double jumps for any of these first three. We can just do so with charge jumps. Double jump up the stairs, avoid talking to Hunter. Loses a little bit of time if you do, it's not the end of the world. double jump up the triple stairs. Gonna try and double jump through here. And land back in bounds, skipping a swing. Before talking to Zoe, the safety will grab the life bottle and a true speed run you probably wouldn't. Hit this button, stand here where the door is going to land. Flame that button so that the door lands on top of us. Be careful that we don't slip out. Double jump here and glide. We can charge, we can actually aim a little lower than what visually appears to be the entrance, and it will still work. Alright, 149 is not a great crush entry time, but it's not terrible. And we're going to fight Crush. Again, we're going to try and manip him to stay on blue as much as possible, often with damage boosts. So here I'm going to jump, go forward a little bit, and flame him. He doesn't chase us for the first 4 attacks. So I'm just going to go here, which is where we want to keep him for the rest of the time. Again, roughly, we've done that right, 90-degree angle. Since I didn't, he's going to go to a different panel. And so we're going to have to react here. We want to move it back. And we're going to do that by getting him close to that panel so he goes to where we really want to see him. All in all, that loses us a few seconds, but it's not really the end of the world. We want to keep an eye on our health, on sparks. So I'm jumping over the first electricity, tapping forward a little bit and flaming. If I'm close enough, if I'm the right distance, we'll hit. If we're too far away, it won't. And if we're too close, we walk into a force field and probably end up getting out. So this takes some practice. Last hit. Not the best crush, not an awful. We take it, and we can move on. Here's the infamous no crush scene, but we will be skipping this.
No crush!
We'll get a scene of Moneybags being booted off the castle in Autumn Plains. And we're off. So our goal is now climb, skip, gulp, skip, and gulp. We're going to grab some fodder along the way. If you do crush this way, you leave on blue sparks. Walking double jump onto this path here. We're going to charge along. Again, this loses a decent amount of time against some of the better strats, but it is easier. Generally, it's better to learn ground control as quickly as possible. Alright. Climb skip. We didn't get it, so we're going to have to do that again. And this is part of why it's such a problem. It loses so much time if you don't succeed. Alright, once again. I'm not quite getting the angle I want. There we go. We're not done. This jump, if you remember, is still difficult. But we did get it. And again, now we want to get onto the roof here. Onto this roof. And up here. We're going to aim for this corner, and we're going to flop our way up and over. Get zapped by Zoe, and then going to go into gulp skip. Sneak along this wall here. Be very careful. You don't want to pop out at this point. This is roughly where I want to be. So I'm going to hold L2 and start tapping. And I'm going to pay attention to the shadow. I'm going to pay attention to Spyro's feet. I'm going to try and do this as reasonably as I can. I want to minimize the chances of popping back in bounds, but sometimes it just happens. On Twitch, this music will likely get muted. On YouTube, it'll be banned in a couple of countries and you can't monetize. Just not really a concern for me. You can see Spyro's feet are close together, so we're starting to get there. Our shadows dropped, down, XX, and back to tapping left, right. And we successfully dropped down, that's good. There we go, first try gulp skip. Now, I don't expect a first try gulp skip each time,
Well,
but as you can see, it can definitely happen. So if you're trying to be competitive at this category, assume that everyone's PB is going to have a first try gulp skip. Now we're going to go into the gulp fight. Again, we're going to try and get as many doubles as we can, hopefully double barrels into double rockets. But it kind of depends on where the drops are. That might be doable. We'll take a look here. I'll go for it. There we go, we got it. But only barely. With practice, you have a better sense of what can and can't be done. I'm not particularly good at this fight myself, but I can get some doubles. Double rocket phase next, which is pretty easy. We saw the second spawn over here. Alright, so we've done 4 hits, there's 6 to go. See, Gulp's not in the best positions, honestly. It's pretty far away. I see 2 rockets though, which means we can get this to work. That one nearly missed. I'm going to try and get Gulp to charge. He's not. He's going to shoot his rockets out. 4 hits will be incoming at this point at this health level. I really want. There we go. A little easier to work with this. I see a bomb and a barrel close together, we might be able to make that work. I kind of don't like it though, because once Gulp starts moving, it's going to be hard. You can hear that an egg actually hit him in the head, so we lost out on the possibility. Now I see a barrel and a rocket, that makes me happy. I think that's what we're going to go for. I am Sparksless, we want to be careful. We're probably going to get a chicken hatching, and we don't want Gulp to get it, so we also just don't want to die at this point. If you have enough lives left, that's not a problem. If you gain over here, you have to do a bunch of the extra steps. So thankfully, Gulp didn't go for the chicken. I did have to take a single to kind of save that since I was Sparksless. Get an extra cycle. Alright, there we go. Not the best Gulp fight, but not awful. At my level, I'm kind of aiming for about 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes, but it can go up past 4 if it's not that fight. Alright, we're going to get a Winter Tundra cutscene that we're going to skip through.
I think
And
I
we're in the
finally
home
come up with a
stretch, but there are definitely some tricks still to come. Alright, charge past Aurora. Gonna head left. It doesn't really matter, but since I'm green sparks, I'll grab the fodder. Double jump up onto this polygon. I actually nearly missed it. Double jump onto this polygon. I'm gonna go like 3/4 of the way up. Turn. Roughly center here. Double jump into a flop. As we can see, I'm a little too high for what I want, so I'm gonna do that. Rotate the camera back. And tap down slowly, carefully, so we don't fall off. Double jump into the castle. Double jump up the stairs. We're going to do our walking double jump here. And hover a little later than you think you need to. Through this little gap, rotate the camera. And we're into Dragon Shores. It's a little scary when the camera gets stuck in the wall, but with L2, you can generally make it work. Now our last step, get over the wall. And we're starting this corner, we're double jumping there. We want a good one, we want to glide out of the double jump into the wall. We're just going to pop over, we're going to glide out of it so we don't land in the wall. Along this water towards the edge, face into the park. Double jump. Charge along. There we go. Now, there is something unfortunate about this. This actually is a fixed order, it's not random. So we may need to rethink what this means. We may need to rethink the rules of this. But if they're fast enough getting into the park, 2 fauns will always be the third boat. I stopped the timer a little late. That was something like a 12:20, 12:21 going by these rules. But I'm not entirely sure what we want to do with that. Maybe we just say that removes the RNG. I don't know if we want to count the 2 fauns with the rock monster. But you can see that there's sort of a fixed pattern here, and it's on a cycle. We wanted to change that and add the RNG back. Maybe we require Spyro to be on the ride, and that'll change things a little bit. At any rate, that's a very rough, sort of unplanned tutorial on the speed tech required for the Lesbian percent. Again, don't take this as necessarily the best way to do things, but it is about as beginner friendly as you can get given the requirements. Alternatively, if you do this with, say, New Game Plus, if you do this with the All Abilities cheat, you can skip some of the difficult parts, but doing this as quickly as possible, you're still going to have to do gulp skip. Alternatively, if the goal is to do something a little bit easier, you can do, say, 14 talisman routing. So you grab the talisman from each world, and you'll need a bit of gems. You'll need at least 800, probably more in practice, but that means you don't need to do gulp skip. So you've got some options. In terms of just absolutely going fast, you do need all of these tricks. Alright, that's going to be it for me. Thanks for watching. I'm Yeruglo. Bye.